Hi guys, most of you listen to stories unsubscribed. If you like what I do, please subscribe to the channel as it's free. Thank you. Something very odd happened to me a few months back. I want to keep my identity secret, so I'll skip the name. But you should know I have a social media account. I'm just a normal person, with a job I've held for years. I used to share photos online now and then, but recently I began making these short videos. Reels, they call them. They're pretty popular nowadays. I made these videos for fun at first, and soon a few of them started to get lots of likes. My follower count shot up more than I ever imagined, so I kept at it. Before long, I had over 10,000 followers and really enjoyed making these videos. I posted them every day from wherever I was, work, home, you name it. It was about 3 months into this new hobby when the strange events of this story occurred. One morning, I checked my social media and saw a new message waiting for me. I receive messages now and then, sometimes from viewers, other times from friends sharing stuff. This message was from a company I'd never heard of before, though they had a verified account and a good number of followers. They said they loved my videos and wanted to sponsor one. I was thrilled. I'd never even thought about earning money from my videos. I didn't know what they'd pay, but I was excited by any offer. They seemed legit and cool, so I replied showing my interest, and they promised to email me more details. They planned to send me some products to feature in a video. After exchanging emails and signing a contract with my details, they told me the products would arrive in about a week. For the next few days, I stuck to my usual routine. My work schedule was pretty regular. I usually started early and was back home by the afternoon. That particular week, on Thursday, I had a late start at 11 a.m., which meant I could sleep in, a rare treat since I usually had to be up by 7:30 a.m. I set my alarm for 9, but I didn't wake up to the alarm that day. Instead, I was jolted awake around 8:30 by the sound of breaking glass. Confused and scared, I sat up, listening closely. More noises followed, like someone forcing their way into my home. The sounds came from the front of the house near the dining area. My place isn't very large, so noises traveled easily. It was clear someone was inside. My heart pounded as I grabbed my phone to call 911. I could hear them moving around, not bothering to be quiet. There had to be at least 2 intruders. As I whispered into the phone to the emergency operator, detailing what was happening, the intruders continued to rummage through my house, oblivious or indifferent to the noise they were making. As I lay there, phone in hand, waiting for the police to arrive, the severity of the situation began to sink in. Luckily for me, it didn't seem like they were getting closer to where I was hiding. After I hung up with 911, the operator had told me the police would arrive soon. Meanwhile, I could still hear the intruders moving around the house. My nerves were on edge, fearing they might come toward my bedroom. Up to that moment, they had stayed in other parts of the house, but I was not sure how long that would last. I didn't have a lock on my bedroom door, and I didn't want to risk staying there unprotected. I decided to move to the bathroom next door. It had a lock, which made it a slightly safer place to wait. But this meant I had to open my bedroom door and close the bathroom door behind me without making any noise. I cautiously approached my bedroom door, opened it slowly and as quietly as I could. I tiptoed toward the bathroom, but just then, I heard footsteps approaching. In a panic, I hurried into the bathroom, shut the door a bit louder than intended, and locked it. Relief washed over me as I stood safely inside. The footsteps seemed to move away, and soon after I heard men's voices from the other end of the house. After a few more moments, the house fell silent as if they had left. I stayed in the bathroom, door locked, and waited. About 5 minutes later, the police arrived. I heard them knocking and cautiously stepped out to open the front door. The police entered and started to search my home. By then, the intruders were gone. They had smashed the back window that overlooked the yard from the dining room, and several of my belongings were missing. Although shaken, I was grateful to be unharmed but frustrated about the situation. I hoped the police would catch those responsible. What did all this have to do with Instagram? Initially, I didn't make any connection. But a few days passed, and nothing arrived in the mail. I went on Instagram to message the company about the expected products, but their account had disappeared. as if it had been deleted. Searching further, I found a different verified page for the company. Then it hit me. I had given my address in the contract for the sponsorship. If they had watched my posts, they could have known my work schedule and even recognized parts of my house. Moreover, I discovered that anyone could pay to get a page verified. It seemed like the sponsorship might have been a setup. I didn't know why or if it was just a strange coincidence, but I couldn't shake off the suspicion that it was all intentionally arranged. This happened to me in my second year of university. I was living in a small house with my roommate, Jack. The university I attended was huge, with around 20,000 students. It was the first semester when this all started. One day I was scrolling through Instagram and noticed I had a new follower. Her name was Emily, and her profile had the initials of my university and a future graduation year. She was also followed by a couple of people I knew from school, not close friends, but acquaintances. I guessed Emily must be a student at my university, so I followed her back. Her profile was simple, a few selfies and some photos of her cat. Nothing unusual. After that, I just moved on with my day. A few days later, I noticed that Emily had liked every single one of my photos. I had about 40 posts, stretching back to my high school days. It was flattering, but also a bit strange. I wondered if she might be interested in me. She didn't leave any comments or send any messages. Several days passed without further interaction. Then, one evening, while Jack was studying in a university classroom, I was home alone. Around 9 at night, I heard a knock. I was not expecting anyone and was confused about who it could be. I was in my room and didn't catch the first knock clearly. I stepped into the hallway and heard it again. This time, I realized the knocking came from the back door, not the front. This was unusual. I approached the back door and peeked through the window. There was a girl standing outside, Emily. I didn't recognize her immediately because I had only seen her through her online selfies. I'm pretty sure we had never met in person. As I watched, she tried to open the door herself. I hesitated, then opened the door slightly and greeted her. I asked what she was doing here. She asked if she could come inside. Something didn't feel right. Her showing up unannounced at my back door late at night was unsettling, especially since there was no way she should have known where I lived. I questioned her about how she found my house. She just asked to come inside once more. I really did not want her to enter, so I told her that I was very busy with schoolwork and needed to go back to it. She paused, looking upset, then mentioned she would leave and walked away, seeming angry. I felt relieved when she left, but mostly I was confused. After she went, I returned to my room and decided to block Emily on Instagram. Her showing up without telling me felt wrong. When Jack returned, I asked if he knew Emily. He said no. I showed him her picture, but he still didn't recognize her. I explained what had happened, and he was just as puzzled as me. I had hoped he might know her, or that maybe she had asked him for my address. But he didn't, which made the situation even weirder and scarier. The next night, I was working late on my assignments due at midnight. It was around 11:30 p.m., and I was nearly done when Jack called out from the living room. He was watching TV, and when I asked what he needed, he told me there was a girl at the front door. I immediately thought it was Emily. I walked to the living room and looked through the front door window. There she was, Emily, just standing there. But she didn't knock. She seemed to see me looking and then suddenly ran off. It was the most unsettling thing, just unsettling. I went back, finished my homework, and then sat with Jack in the living room. We kept checking the windows, half expecting her to return. Thankfully, she didn't appear again. After that night, I never saw her again. Months later, I asked Jack to check her Instagram. By then, Emily had posted more pictures and still seemed to be attending our university. I never understood her actions. They were deeply unsettling. My name is Anna, and this strange event began in the autumn of 2023. At that time, I was living alone in a small house in a quiet suburb, working at a nearby office. I also maintained a personal Instagram profile with a couple thousand followers. I wasn't well known, just a regular person who enjoyed sharing my life online. One evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I received a message from a close friend. It contained a link to an Instagram profile, along with a message, "This isn't you, right?" Curious, I clicked the link and was directed to a page that was pretending to be mine. However, it didn't use my real name. Instead, it had a completely different name. Shockingly, the account featured many photos that were unmistakably mine, although I had never shared them from this account. The profile had posted around 120 of my photos over the past several months. Most of these photos were the same ones I had already posted on my own Instagram. This fake account had gathered around 600 followers, and each photo received plenty of likes. It was unsettling to see how no one seemed to notice that this account was a complete imposter. As I browsed through the images, a chill ran down my spine. Among the familiar photos were several that I had never posted online. These were personal photos saved only on my phone, pictures from private moments of my life. The realization that someone had accessed these private images without my permission was horrifying. How had they obtained these photos? What else did they know about me? I quickly sent a message to the mysterious Instagram profile, asking who they were and why they were pretending to be me. Then, I reported the account. But shortly after sending the message, the profile blocked me. I shared what had happened with several friends, and they agreed to help by reporting the profile too. Within a few days, the Instagram team shut it down. I was relieved it was gone, but still troubled by the mystery of who was behind it. Only a few days after the account was closed, something even more unsettling happened. When I left my house one morning, I found a note taped to my front door. The note was written on plain paper, folded neatly. As I read it, a cold fear settled over me. The note was from the person who had created the fake Instagram page. They boasted about being able to access any information they wanted about me. They mocked me, saying I must think I'm very special because of my social media presence. Shaken, I rushed to the police station. I explained everything, showed them the note, and told them about the hacked Instagram account. The police took the note and started an investigation, but they warned me that these cases are tough to solve. Feeling vulnerable, I took immediate steps to secure my digital life. I created new accounts where necessary and changed all my passwords to something much stronger. Fortunately, my living arrangement was about to change, which gave me a small sense of relief. My lease was ending, and I moved to a different place a few weeks later. Since moving, nothing unusual has happened, but the fear of being watched or followed hasn't completely left me. I sometimes wonder if the perpetrator could be an old classmate harboring resentment, or perhaps a random stalker who chose me as their target. The uncertainty of not knowing who it was or what could have happened next still lingers in my mind. I'm a young woman who enjoys sharing moments of my life on Instagram, just like many others. I often post photos and love seeing the likes and comments they gather. Most reactions come from close friends, but not always. Like others, I sometimes deal with odd and unsettling messages from strangers. There are men who randomly like my photos, leave comments, or send me direct messages. Some are just too strange, and I find myself deleting them. But mostly, I just shrug it off as part of being online. However, something happened last summer that still sends shivers down my spine. I had posted a new photo on Instagram, and soon after, a man I didn't know liked and commented on it. He wrote, "Very nice," adding a fire emoji. His message seemed harmless at first. Shortly after, he sent a direct message simply saying hi. I wasn't interested and didn't reply. Curious, I checked his profile. He appeared much older, with only a handful of photos, none of which I recognized. We had no friends in common. I decided to ignore him, assuming he would get the hint. But he didn't stop. The next day, he messaged again, and over the following days, several more messages popped up from him. I ignored all of them, expecting him to eventually give up. However, his persistence didn't wane. Every day, amongst my notifications, there were new messages from him. One evening, feeling frustrated, I decided to block him, but first I wanted to see what he had been sending. As I scrolled through the messages, my heart stopped. Among the repetitive greetings, there was a photo he had sent. A photo of my house. Fear gripped me as I realized this was no ordinary follower. This man must be local, and alarmingly, he knew where I lived. As I read his other messages, they grew more disturbing. Over and over, he said hi, eventually stating outright that he knew my address. After blocking the man and sending a report to Instagram, I was left feeling unsure. Would this be enough to stop him? Despite my doubts, I decided against contacting the police, thinking they might not take my fears seriously. The day slowly turned into evening, and as the light faded, so did my sense of security. Living alone in a 2-story house on the outskirts of a bustling city brought both freedom and fear. I spent the evening trying to distract myself by calling friends, but none were available to come over. As the house grew darker, I felt more isolated, with every small sound setting me on edge. Nothing unusual happened for a few hours, and I began to relax, hoping the man had moved on. By 10 p.m. I was settled on the sofa, watching a movie, trying to immerse myself in the story rather than my worries. My phone was quiet, no odd notifications popping up, which slightly eased my anxiety. However, during a quiet moment in the movie, a sudden urge to look outside gripped me. I paused the film, my heart thumping as I crept to the window. Peering through the blinds, I saw a car parked directly in front of my house, which I didn't recognize. The silhouette of a person in the driver's seat was barely visible. My mind raced. Was it him? Had he found a way to follow me despite my efforts? I quickly let the blind snap back into place, hoping the person hadn't seen my movement. Frozen on the spot, I listened intently. The sound of a car door opening and then shutting broke the silence of the night. With my heart in my throat, I dared to peek out again, just a sliver. I could see a figure stepping out of the car and walking toward my house. As the figure drew nearer, I recognized the build and the gait. It was definitely the man from Instagram. He approached with a steady pace, his steps audible as he moved closer to my front door. That night, I was overwhelmed with fear, hoping he wouldn't try to break into my house. I could hear his footsteps moving toward the back of the house, and that's when I decided it was time to call the police. With shaky hands, I grabbed my phone and dialed. I explained the situation in quick, urgent whispers while still sitting on the couch, not daring to move. For a few long minutes, everything was silent. I could not hear where the man was, and the suspense made my heart race. Suddenly, the sound of a car door opening and closing pierced the silence. Peering out the window, I hoped to see police cars, but instead, it was the man driving away. Although relieved he was gone, I knew the police would now have a harder time catching him. The police arrived about 5 minutes later. I described the man and his car as best as I could, though I hadn't gotten a clear view. I recounted everything to the officers, including the messages and the photo of my house. Unfortunately, after checking, I realized I had blocked his Instagram account, which seemed to have been deleted since it was no longer in my blocked list. The officers left after taking my statement, but my nerves were still on edge. Deciding I couldn't stay alone, I arranged to spend the next few days at a friend's house. That felt safer, knowing the man knew where I lived. However, the very next night, I received a direct message request on Instagram from a new anonymous account. It just read, "User," followed by a string of numbers and had no profile picture. The message contained only one photo, a chilling view of my bedroom window taken from outside in the yard. My blood ran cold, realizing that he must have taken this while lurking around my house. I showed the photo to my friend, and we reported it to the police immediately. Unfortunately, there wasn't much identifiable information on the account. The police promised to investigate further. After several quiet days, I decided it was time to return home. In the bright morning light, I felt a bit braver. But as I drove up to my house, my heart sank. The back door window was shattered. Terrified he might still be inside, I didn't even step out of my car, instead calling the police right from the driveway. The police were quick to respond. They entered my house cautiously, and after what felt like an eternity, they emerged with the man in custody. He had been hiding inside, possibly waiting for me to return. Relief washed over me as they led him away. The ordeal was finally over, but the terror of those days would haunt me forever. I was safe for now, but I knew this experience would linger in my memory, a stark reminder of the vulnerability that came with sharing one's life online. I often spend time looking at funny pictures and news on the internet. I'm a 22-year-old guy, and last year, during my final days at university. I was relaxing in my dorm room, watching videos on YouTube on my phone. Suddenly, I got a notification from Instagram. It was a follow request from a girl named Emma. Her profile was set to private, and her profile picture showed her at a sports event, cheering happily. From that single image, she seemed like a fun-loving person. Her bio mentioned she attended a big university not too far from mine. She had a decent number of followers, around 1,000, and followed about 400 people with 100 posts up. I didn't know her, but she seemed interesting, so I accepted her request and asked to follow her back. After that, I went back to watching my video. The next day, I checked Instagram again to see if Emma had accepted my follow request. Surprisingly, she hadn't. Instead, she declined it but continued following me. I found this strange and a bit disappointing, but didn't think much of it. However, things started getting weirder the following day. Emma liked an old photo of mine, one that I posted 4 years ago. It was clear she had scrolled through my profile. Thinking it might have been a mistake, I requested to follow her again. An hour later, she had declined once more. I was confused, but decided to drop the issue and move on. Not long after, eerie things began to happen. I lived in a small 2-bedroom house just off campus, sharing it with my roommate, Tom. One morning, Tom mentioned that the previous night, he thought he saw someone darting through our backyard. Over the next few days, we kept hearing odd noises outside, and sometimes they seemed to come from inside our house. One terrifying night, I was jolted awake by a loud rattling noise at my window. I jumped out of bed and quickly turned on the light. As soon as I did, the rattling noise stopped. Heart pounding, I rushed to my window and peered out into the darkness. I caught a glimpse of a man running away. He glanced back at me for just a moment. It was too dark to see clearly, but he was definitely an adult man. Alarmed, I woke Tom, and we both sat up for the rest of the night, trying to decide what to do. We chose not to call the police, thinking maybe it was just a one-time scare. The following day, with the night's fear still fresh, I found myself aimlessly scrolling through Instagram again. My thoughts drifted back to Emma. Curious, I went to check her profile once more, but this time, it was gone. Deleted. I started to think that maybe the person who followed me wasn't Emma at all, but a man pretending to be her. It explained why he had declined my follow requests. I couldn't be sure, but the timing of everything made it seem too much of a coincidence. Trying to shake off the unease, I attempted to focus on other things. However, that night, as I tried to sleep, the sound of gravel crunching underfoot outside brought me back to alertness. Tom heard it too. We looked at each other in the dim light, fear etched on our faces. We decided it was time to do something. The next morning, we talked about installing a camera outside to see if we could catch whoever was lurking around our house. We spent the day setting up the camera, hoping it would give us some answers. As evening fell, we tested the camera and made sure it covered the backyard and the area around my window. Feeling slightly more secure, we tried to get some rest, but the sense of being watched was hard to shake off. We left the lights on and kept our phones close, just in case. The camera was supposed to help us feel safer, but instead, it added to our anxiety. Every small noise made us jump, wondering if it was just the wind or if someone was really out there, watching us, waiting. We didn't know what was coming next, but we knew we had to be ready. I often spend time on Instagram. It's a favorite app on my phone. I don't post much myself. I mostly enjoy watching videos and seeing pictures others share. But something weird occurred a few months back, and I still can't make sense of it. Originally, my profile was open for anyone to see. I had around 200 followers and followed about 300 people. Not a lot by most standards. My own profile had just 3 posts, all quite old and rather dull. I rarely ever commented on other people's posts, unless it was a close friend's. So it was a total shock when, one morning, I noticed 50 new notifications on Instagram. Confused, I opened the app and saw that my old photos were suddenly flooded with comments. But these weren't nice comments. They were harsh and hurtful. People called me ugly, a horrible person, among other awful things. Despite the surge in comments, my follower count hadn't changed. I checked some of the profiles leaving these comments. They appeared normal, all private, and none were familiar to me. As I browsed, more notifications popped up. This time they were direct messages, each one as mean as the comments. I replied to one, asking why they were sending these messages. The chilling reply was simply, "You should know." I racked my brain for any reason why this was happening. I hadn't changed anything recently, and I was always kind to everyone. The negativity was bewildering. The hateful messages didn't stop. They came at me through comments and direct messages, one after another. Finally, overwhelmed, I decided to delete my account. A week later, I cautiously set up a new account. Since then, things have been normal again. But the mystery still haunts me. Who were those people? Why were they so angry with me? I had done nothing wrong, as far as I knew. The thought lingered in my mind, a dark cloud over my daily scrolls through the app. I'm just a normal guy, and I like using the social media app Instagram. I check it every day to see what my friends are up to, and to keep up with my favorite sports. I often browse the Explore page, where Instagram shows random posts from accounts you don't follow based on what you might like. Each time you open Instagram, the Explore page is different. It was a regular evening, maybe a week or so ago, when I first noticed the same photo pop up twice on the Explore page. At first, it seemed like nothing, just a small glitch maybe. But then I saw it again, and again. This same photo kept appearing, no matter how many times I refreshed the page. I didn't think much of it at first, just an odd repeat, but the repetition started to feel eerie. The photo was simple. A gray four-door sedan parked somewhere nondescript. It looked utterly ordinary, neither new nor old. Oddly, the photo didn't show how many likes it had, and there were no comments under it. Driven by curiosity, I finally clicked on the profile. The profile name was a jumble of letters and numbers, and its profile picture was the same gray car. It had just a handful of followers. There were only 4 photos posted, each of different cars in various locations. 2 parked by the roadside, 1 in a driveway, and another in a parking lot. None of the cars stood out. They seemed like they could belong to anyone. But as I scrolled through these mundane car photos, my heart skipped a beat when I recognized the background in one of them. It was my house. The car in the driveway was not just the same make and model as mine. It was my car. I zoomed in, my fingers trembling. There was no mistaking it. That was definitely my driveway, and that was definitely my car. I felt a cold rush of fear. Who was running this account? Why were they taking photos of my car and posting them on this obscure Instagram profile? I shared the photo with a few friends, hoping someone would tell me it was just a prank, but no one knew anything. Each photo on the page was void of captions or any hint of the photographer's intent. The mystery deepened, and the unsettling feeling grew as I pondered the implications. Was someone stalking me? Watching my movements? My friends agreed it was very strange, but none of them could guess who might do such a thing or why. Out of curiosity, I considered leaving a comment or sending a message to the mysterious profile, but in the end, I chose not to. The next day, I went back on Instagram. The same picture of my car appeared again on the Explore page. I tapped on it, and it was the same photo as before. I noticed that the account had posted a story, so I clicked on it. The story featured a poll with the question, "Which one?" and options labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4. I didn't vote because it didn't make any sense to me. The whole situation felt too weird, and I decided it was best to just ignore it. I logged off Instagram and stayed home for the rest of the day, uneasy but trying to distract myself. That night, I went to bed with a heavy feeling. The next morning, I got ready for work as usual. However, when I stepped outside, my heart sank. My car was gone. In a flash, all those odd posts came rushing back to me. I called the police immediately and then informed my boss about what had happened. She was understanding and told me I could start work late after handling things with the police. I explained everything to the officers, including the weird Instagram account. But when I tried to show them, I discovered that the account had been deleted. The police did what they could, taking all the details and promising to search for my car. I took a ride-sharing service to work and later arranged a rental car through my insurance. The next few days were filled with constant worry and confusion, but eventually, the police called me. They had found my car abandoned on the side of a road about 20 miles away. Thankfully, it was undamaged, and I was able to get it back. However, the police never figured out who was behind the Instagram account or why they targeted me. That poll, was it a way for someone to choose which car to steal? Why would someone post such things on Instagram in the first place? The whole experience left me with more questions than answers. I just hope nothing like this ever happens again. The fear and uncertainty of those days still linger whenever I use social media or hear a car similar to mine pass by. This is a scary story that happened to me not too long ago. First, let me say that I am a woman, and this took place in a big city park I was passing through after leaving my job. This park is quite vast and usually has many people around because of its location in the heart of a bustling city. However, that day, as I was walking, I started to feel uneasy when I noticed a man trailing behind me. I first saw him when I paused to check my phone, and he was lingering nearby, seemingly doing nothing. As I resumed walking, he did the same. I quickly crossed the park and reached the busy streets of the city. While waiting to cross a road, I caught him nearby again, stealing glances at me every time I looked in his direction. Although I wasn't sure he was really following me, I couldn't shake off the suspicion. It took me about 10 more minutes to reach my apartment building. I kept checking over my shoulder as I walked, and each time, he was still there, not too far behind. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before, and it was truly frightening. When I finally got to my apartment building, he was about 20 feet away. I hurried inside, locked the door quickly behind me, and he did not come in. Whether he tried to or just walked past, I couldn't tell. I tried to forget his face, hoping never to see him again. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a notification. A new follower on Instagram. When I opened the app, my heart sank. It was him, the same man from the park. I couldn't understand how he had found my name or my profile. Immediately, I blocked him, feeling a deep sense of fear about how easily he had tracked me down. The next night, as I was settling down in my apartment, another notification popped up. It was from Instagram again, and unbelievably, it was him following my second account. On my second Instagram, I shared things that weren't so important, only with my very close friends. This account was locked so that only people I approved could see what I posted. It didn't even have my real name, and I didn't connect it to my main account. So, when I saw that he had found this private profile too and was asking to follow me, I was really scared. I blocked him there as well. Just half an hour after blocking him, there was a loud knock at my door. Feeling a chill down my spine, I tiptoed to the door and peeked through the peephole. There he was, the same man standing right outside. He had somehow figured out not only where I lived, but exactly which apartment was mine. I was frozen with fear and didn't open the door. He knocked again, harder this time. Despite my fear, I stayed quiet and watched. He didn't go away. Instead, he just stood there, sometimes walking a few steps away, then coming back, as if waiting for me to let him in. I grabbed my phone and called the police, never taking my eyes off him. He continued to linger there, pacing slightly but always returning to my door. It felt like an eternity, but the police arrived after about 10 minutes. He was still there when they showed up. I overheard them talking to him through my door. He told them he got the wrong place, pretending to be confused and saying he was just looking for his friend Jason. But it was clear to everyone he wasn't being truthful. The police didn't seem to buy his story, but they only warned him to leave and not to come back. After the officers had talked to him, they spoke with me. I explained everything from the park to the Instagram followings. They advised me to call them if he ever showed up again. Thankfully, that was the last time I saw him. He never returned. That whole experience left me shaken. I couldn't shake off how creepy it was, how he could find out so much about me and just appear at my door. It was a terrifying reminder of how careful you need to be about who might be watching. This event took place last year. I am a woman living by myself in an apartment complex. I have a Facebook profile where I often share photos. Generally, I post something new every few weeks. Sharing photos on Facebook is enjoyable for me, although sometimes you encounter fake accounts or unsettling people. Up until then, I hadn't really faced any serious issues. But then, something chilling occurred. One morning, I logged into Facebook and noticed a new message. It came from a man who followed my account, someone named Mike, whom I did not recognize and hadn't followed back. I couldn't tell how long he had been looking at my page, but his message was an invitation to meet and spend time together. His message struck me as odd, and I chose not to reply. After all, we had never spoken before, and it was strange for him to expect me to accept his invitation just like that. Plus, from his profile picture, he didn't seem like someone I'd want to meet. I assumed that would be the end of it. However, the very next day, he sent another message. He repeated his request to meet up and even offered to pick me up. This time, I politely declined, hoping he would understand I wasn't interested. Nevertheless, Mike persisted. He tried persuading me again, but I continued to ignore him. I couldn't fathom why he kept sending these messages without any prior interaction. It seemed he stopped after that, as I received no further messages the next day. I thought maybe he had finally given up. The night after, I went to the supermarket in the evening after finishing work. I shop from time to time, but I don't stick to a specific schedule. I spend about half an hour picking out groceries. It was nearing 8:30 p.m. by the time I was ready to leave. The store had calmed down, with only a handful of shoppers around. When I reached my car in the dimly lit parking lot, I noticed a vehicle parked unusually close to mine. I was just finishing loading my shopping bags into the car when the door of the vehicle next to mine swung open. A man stepped out. At first glance, he seemed like just another shopper, but instead of heading to the store, he came directly towards me. Initially, I was puzzled, but then he called out my name and questioned why I had been ignoring his messages. It dawned on me that it was the same Mike from Facebook, whom I recognized from his profile picture. Confusion silenced me for a moment before I managed to ask what he was doing here and how he knew I would be at the store. He claimed it was just a coincidence. I hurried to put the last of my groceries away, telling him I needed to get home. After slamming my trunk shut, I tried to bypass him to get to my driver's door, but he grabbed my arm, insisting I should go with him. I pleaded with him to let go, telling him he was hurting me, but he only tightened his grip and started dragging me towards his car. Realizing he was much stronger, I started screaming for help at the top of my lungs, hoping to catch the attention of anyone nearby. Thankfully, there were a few other shoppers in the parking lot who noticed the commotion. When Mike saw them looking, he abruptly released me and hissed for me to be quiet. I took the chance to dash around my car, yanked open the driver's door, and jumped inside, locking it just as Mike tried to follow. I started the car quickly and drove away from the parking lot before Mike could even return to his car. He tried to follow, but I was already speeding off. I drove to another nearby store out of his view, then zigzagged through various streets in a residential area to make sure he wasn't following me. Only when I felt safe did I head home. It took me a while to calm down enough to remember to call the police. I explained everything that had happened, but by the time I checked Facebook again, Mike's account had disappeared. I think he deleted it. After that terrifying night, I never encountered Mike again, but the fear of that encounter lingered for a long time. I'm a college student and I like to share my life on Instagram. I've been using it for a while, and sometimes I get messages from people who make me uncomfortable. Usually, I just ignore these messages. A little while back, I posted a new picture that got a lot of attention, mostly from my friends. But among the comments, there was one from a man I didn't know. His name was Mark, and his username was just Mark, followed by a random string of numbers. His profile picture was blurry, but he looked much older than me. He left a lot of heart emojis, which felt weird to me. I usually don't mind much since I get odd comments now and then, but then he commented on 2 more of my photos a few days later. In one comment, he called me beautiful, and in another, he said he wanted to meet me. I thought the best thing to do was to ignore him, hoping he would go away if I didn't respond. But ignoring him didn't work. He sent me a direct message soon after. When I opened it, he wrote that he found me attractive and asked if we could meet. I didn't reply and hoped he would stop messaging me, but he didn't take the hint. The next day, he bombarded me with messages, about 5 in just 10 minutes. I still didn't respond, I decided it was time to block him. Since my Instagram profile was public, it didn't take him long to notice. Within hours, he created another account and followed me again. His messages changed. They weren't friendly anymore. He was angry that I had blocked him and threatened to find me. I blocked him once more, telling myself he was probably just trying to scare me. But the following day, he reached out again from a new account. This time, his message was chilling. He said he was now in the same state as me and even mentioned the city I live in. When I read his message saying he had seen me before, I became really scared. It seemed like this man didn't just find me by chance on Instagram. He must have known me in real life. I couldn't figure out where he might have seen me. I was studying at a big college close to a major city, and I also worked at a busy restaurant. There were too many places where our paths could have crossed. I decided to report his profile to Instagram, explaining everything he had done in a message to them. I wasn't sure if it would help, but I also wasn't sure if this was serious enough to involve the police. For a day or two, I heard nothing from him, which made me feel a bit relieved. But just as I was starting to relax, he contacted me again. He had created another account, and this time, his message was terrifying. He said he was on his way to my house. At first, I didn't believe he would actually come, but then I saw a car pull up outside my apartment. I lived alone in a small one-bedroom place that was right next to the parking lot. It was easy to notice when someone parked directly in front of my apartment. An older man got out of the car, and he looked just like the man in the profile picture. He started walking toward my building. I was sure he was coming to my apartment. Panicking, I quickly pulled my shades down and rushed to my bedroom. I hid in my closet and dialed the police. While I was on the phone with them, I could hear knocking on my front door. My phone kept lighting up with Instagram notifications, more messages from him. I stayed hidden in the closet, trembling, waiting for the police to arrive. The police got there just in time. They found the man trying to break into my front window. They arrested him, and I was safe. But the whole experience left me deeply shaken. I knew I wouldn't have to worry about him anymore, but the fear lingered. Ever since I was little, I wanted to be a model. People always said I was beautiful and had the right shape for it. I had long legs and was thin, and I felt sure I'd look great in photos. So, I began sharing my pictures on Instagram, hoping someone would spot me. I got a few thousand followers by sharing mostly selfies, which were pretty basic. I wasn't very serious about it, but hoped it might lead to something. Then a message from a talent agency popped up. They mentioned they'd seen my photos and wanted to meet me. I was thrilled. I looked them up, and they seemed real. They had a proper website and all. They sent me their office address and asked me to come over for a chat. I imagined their office would be in some grand building, but when I got there, it was just a block of flats. I stood outside, confused, wondering if I got it wrong. I texted the agent to say I'd arrived. They texted back right away, telling me to come on in. I hesitated, thinking about my dreams. I decided to ignore my doubts and went inside. Walking into the building made me anxious. The entrance was tidy and bright, yet it was too quiet. No one was around, no sign of life. I found the elevator and pressed the button for their floor. Getting off the elevator, I looked around. It was just a normal hallway, not an office space. I walked slowly to number 56, as they'd told me. The door was just a regular one, nothing special. I knocked, feeling nervous. Someone inside told me to come in. Opening the door, I saw a big man in a suit, smiling welcomingly. "Hi, we talked on Instagram. Please come in and have a seat," he greeted me. I stepped in, but noticed right away it was just a flat, not an office, just someone's home. I felt uneasy and decided to leave. I thanked the man and said I had to go. He seemed surprised. As I went for the door, he moved to block it. "Something wrong?" he asked, his eyes turning cold. I was scared now. His nice smile was gone and he looked scary. I tried to leave, but he caught my arm tight. "Just sit, it's okay." His voice was deep and frightening. I couldn't get away from him. He was too strong. Looking around for something to defend myself with, I found nothing within reach. Then I heard someone walking in the hallway. Maybe a neighbor? I screamed as loud as I could. The man let go of my arm when I screamed. I ran out of the room and slammed the door. I didn't stop running until I got to the elevator. I passed an old man in the hallway, probably the neighbor I heard. I pressed the elevator button over and over, hoping it would hurry. When it arrived, I jumped in and pressed the button for the ground floor. I started crying as the elevator went down. I couldn't believe what just happened. I had been so excited and it turned into a nightmare. Out in the lobby, I ran onto the street and didn't stop until I was among lots of people, where I felt safe. I sat on a bench, catching my breath, realizing how foolish I'd been. I wanted this so much I ignored the danger. I was in real danger and was lucky to escape. I called the cops later. The Instagram page was a fake. The talent agency was real, but that man had nothing to do with them. He got arrested. I found out he was checked for doing bad things to other women. I never learned what happened to them, but I hope they got away like I did. When I was in university a few years back, my life was full of friends. I liked to hang out, study, and follow the newest things on Instagram. I was pretty popular and enjoyed my life a lot. Then, one day, a guy from my past school days started following me on Instagram. I didn't really remember him well. We shared some classes but never talked much. His name was Tom, and he always seemed a bit off to me. He was about my age, I think I was 21 then. He was tall, skinny, and liked to wear black all the time. His Instagram was weird. All his photos were taken in a dim room, making him look very sad and kind of creepy. It seemed like he was trying to act like someone from those goth groups. I didn't know what to think, but I didn't want to be mean, so I accepted his follow request. Right after that, he began messaging me, saying I was pretty, and that he had liked me from a distance for a long time. This surprised me because we had seen each other around school, but he never said a word. I thought maybe he was just shy, which I could understand, but his messages made me feel uneasy. I didn't reply, hoping he would stop, but he didn't. He sent more and more messages, asking why I was ignoring him. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I blocked him. I hoped that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. Even though we were in the same major, I never bumped into Tom at school, which I found odd but was secretly relieved about. One evening, while I was looking at Instagram, I heard noises outside. Initially, I thought it was just one of my roommates coming back. But then, footsteps outside my room made me freeze. They weren't from my roommates. I would have recognized those sounds. It was someone else. I felt scared and knew I should call the police, but I had to be silent. I didn't want this stranger to know I was aware of their presence. I quietly grabbed my phone and sneaked into my closet, closing the door softly behind me. My heart was racing, thumping loud in my ears. Hiding in my closet, I was trying really hard to breathe quietly. The footsteps outside didn't go away, so I quietly picked up my phone and called the police. I whispered into the phone, explaining my situation, and the person on the other end told me to keep quiet and stay where I was. Time seemed to stop as I listened to someone moving around my place. Then my bedroom door opened. Now, only the thin door of my closet was between me and them. I could hear the noise of someone searching through my things. I was scared and didn't care what they wanted. After a while, I heard the police sirens getting closer. The sirens grew louder, then the sound of footsteps hurrying away. I stayed hidden until I felt it might be safe. When I finally came out, my room was a mess. Clothes were everywhere, and my bed was turned upside down. It looked like a storm had hit my room. I was in shock because it didn't seem like it was that loud, but I was too scared to think clearly. The police were at my front door when I walked out. They might have saved me, and I was so thankful. Then, looking outside, I saw an officer with someone in handcuffs. It was Tom. Seeing him confirmed my fear. I couldn't believe he had broken into my place and I felt sick. I always knew he was weird, but this was beyond my imagination. The police said I should be careful and call them if anything else happened. I decided to stay with my family for a few days because I couldn't stand being in my apartment anymore. When I returned to university, I learned Tom had been expelled for stalking another girl months ago. He hadn't been caught for anything serious then, so he was out there until he targeted me. Thankfully, he was caught this time, so he couldn't harm anyone else. I'm a 21-year-old girl studying in college. I've been on Instagram since my high school days. Not long ago, I opened the Instagram app and noticed a new follower request. It was from a girl named Jane, whom I had shared a photography class with last term. I accepted her follow request and followed her back. And we weren't close friends, but we had chatted a few times and she seemed friendly. I glanced at her profile. She only had a few pictures, around 5 or 6. Later that day, Jane sent me a message. She greeted me and asked how my studies were going. We exchanged a few messages about school and jobs. Then she mentioned she had a school project to make a video and wondered if she could borrow my camera. I was okay with it and shared my home address with her. However, the next day, Jane messaged me again, saying she no longer needed my camera but thanked me anyway. A few nights later, around midnight, I thought I heard a noise from outside as I was about to sleep. I lived in a small house near my college with 2 other girls. I had my own room. It sounded like someone was moving the bushes outside my window. Curious, I went to check and saw a figure darting away. The person was in jeans and a red shirt, but I couldn't see who it was. I quickly shut my window and told my roommates about it. We were all scared, and it took me over an hour to calm down enough to try to sleep again. A week passed and I ran into Jane on my way to class. I greeted her and asked about her video project. She looked puzzled and asked, "What project?" Confused, I tried to remind her about borrowing my camera. She insisted she had no idea what I was talking about. I pulled out my phone to show her our chat, but all her messages were gone, and her account had vanished. Jane showed me her real Instagram page on her phone. It was completely different from the one I had seen, and she wasn't following me at all. We realized that someone must have made a fake account pretending to be her. Since the account was deleted, there was nothing we could do. It was all very strange and unsettling. The following night, while I was up late doing homework, I heard the bushes move again. Before I could react, there was a knock on my window. Frozen with fear, I guessed it might be the same man from before. This time, I was alone at home, which made it even scarier. Glancing at the window, my heart raced when I saw it was slightly open. A hand snuck in, slowly lifting the window higher. In panic, I grabbed my phone, dashed to the bathroom, and locked myself in. I called the police, trembling with fear as I waited for help. I quickly explained the situation to the police, telling them there was someone breaking into my house. They promised to send help right away and told me to stay on the line. Sitting in the darkest corner of the bathroom, my breaths were shallow, trying to make no sound. The intruder was now inside my room, and I could hear every step he took. The thought of not knowing who he was or what he wanted made me even more scared. After a short while, he moved out of my room and started checking the other rooms where my roommates would usually be. Then his footsteps approached the bathroom door. My heart was racing, pounding so loud I feared he could hear it. He tried the door handle, finding it locked. After a pause, he spoke in a chillingly calm voice. "Come out. I just want to talk." His voice was that of a young man, but it didn't make me feel any safer. I stayed silent, pressed into the corner. "Please," he continued, "I'm not going to hurt you," followed by a chuckle that sent shivers down my spine. Then faintly, the sound of sirens in the distance reached my ears. My heart clung to the hope that they were coming for me. The sirens grew louder, a sound that I had never been so relieved to hear. As they got closer, the man, still calm, said, "Now why did you have to do a thing like that to me?" His footsteps receded. I didn't move from the bathroom, not until I heard the front door open and the clear sound of voices outside. Finally, police voices filled the house, and I cautiously left the bathroom. The officers met me, assuring me they had caught the man and that I was safe now. He was a student from my university, someone who had been in the same photography class as me. He had made the fake account to watch me and find out where I lived. His plan was close to succeeding, but thankfully I was safe now. The relief was overwhelming, yet the fear of what could have happened haunted me. This story happened a few months ago. I am a 19-year-old guy. One day in October, while checking Instagram, I noticed a new follower. Curious, I checked who it was and saw it was a girl about my age, who looked pretty. I went through her profile and saw her posts usually got 200 to 300 likes. She seemed popular. I decided to follow her back. The next day she messaged me first, just saying, "Hey." I replied with, "Hi, how are you?" We began chatting and found out we liked a lot of the same things. Our chats were fun, and I asked if she had Snapchat. She told me she only used Instagram. After talking for a week, we wanted to meet. We chose the following Thursday night. She mentioned she worked in the city center and suggested I meet her on a specific street at 10 p.m. after her work, to hang out. Feeling a bit anxious but excited, I drove to the spot early. I texted her when I arrived, and she replied that she was in her black car, parked not far from me. I spotted the car, and as I got closer, saw its windows were tinted very dark. I hesitated but started walking towards it. Just then, the car began to move. I panicked, turned, and ran back to my car, driving away as fast as I could. I tried to drive home but noticed a car seemed to be following me. In a panic, I started making random turns, trying to lose them. This went on for about 30 minutes until the car finally stopped chasing me. I took a long, roundabout way home. Once home, I checked Instagram, and surprisingly, the girl's account and our messages were still there. I reported everything to the police. They discovered the girl was real and innocent. Her account had been hacked. Even though the date was a bust, I'm just glad I'm safe. Most of you are familiar with the Instagram app and how it's used. Let me begin by saying I see myself as a fairly good-looking girl, though I'm not among those who get hundreds of likes on their photos. I would sometimes get new followers, but it was never a daily occurrence. But something very odd happened last year. One day, I checked Instagram and found I had 36 follow requests. This blew my mind, because the most I ever got in one day was maybe 5 or 6. When I checked, they all seemed to be older men. And not just a bit older, but significantly older, like they were in their 40s and 50s. I went through the list and declined all of them. I couldn't figure out why this was happening. The next day, I had 57 follow requests waiting, and again, all from older men. For the next several days, every time I opened Instagram, I found dozens of follow requests from older men. Soon, the same thing started happening on my Facebook. I got flooded with friend requests every day. Not knowing what to do, I ended up deleting all my social media accounts. A few months later, I created new accounts. Since then, everything has been normal and nothing strange has happened. It remains the weirdest experience, and I still don't have an explanation for it. This story happened not long ago, around 2 years back. At that time, I was 18 and in my final year of high school. Like many other girls my age, I was quite into using Instagram. I'd post pictures a few times a month and usually got a good number of likes on them. And, as it happens to a lot of girls online, sometimes older creepy men would comment on my photos or send me messages. I always ignored and deleted these. Then, one day in the fall of 2018, I shared a photo of me and my friend at school. An older man commented, saying things like, "You're so pretty," with heart emojis. I didn't know him at all, and when I checked his profile, he had no followers and looked to be over 50, so I quickly removed his comment. Soon after, he sent me a direct message. He wrote, "Hey, I'd really like to meet you. Are you interested?" I deleted the message right away and blocked him. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened, but about a week later, I got a message from a different man, also with no followers. It was the same guy, using another account. His message was, "Why did you block me?" followed by, "I know where you live. If you won't meet me, I can come to you." He then sent my exact address. This was way beyond normal creepy behavior. I was truly scared. I decided to wait until my dad got home to tell him, but by then, the account had been deleted. I tried to push it out of my mind over the next few days, but the thought that this man knew where I lived kept bothering me. I eventually started to think about it less. Then, about a week later, I woke up to find something shocking on my bedroom floor. It was a stack of photos, right by the slightly open window. I picked them up, finding about 10 photos in total. They were all taken of me from outside my window. I was horrified. I immediately took the photos to show my parents, and we contacted the police. But in the end, nothing much was done about it. It's been 2 years since then, and thankfully, nothing more has happened. I'm left wondering whether it was just a terrible prank or something far more sinister. I might never find out. This happened to me last summer. When I started using Instagram, I just thought it would be for fun. I hoped people would like my pictures, but I never imagined many would notice them. I posted photos of myself and things from my day, but didn't expect much. However, soon, I got lots of likes and comments. People from everywhere were looking at my photos, saying nice things about how I looked and what I wore. It felt like I had my own group of fans, and I really liked that feeling. But then, I saw a new person following me who seemed weird. His username was Mark_Dark45, and his profile photo was just a common picture of a dark forest. He didn't share any photos, had no personal info, and nobody followed him. But he kept leaving simple comments on my pictures, like beautiful and nice photo. At first I thought he was just another admirer, or maybe not a real person. I knew the internet had many fake accounts, but then things began to feel strange. Around that time I started to see a weird car driving around where I lived. My neighborhood was usually very calm, and it was odd to see a car I didn't recognize. I had a small apartment in an old building on the first floor, but it was a bit above ground. The building was not very tall, only 3 stories. When I saw the unknown car, I also began to hear sounds outside my window late at night. I looked out once and saw a shadowy person moving around. My window faced a closed-off area that belonged to our building. It wasn't a place where the public could go, so it was really odd to see someone there, especially so late. This kept happening, and I found it hard to sleep. I started using sleeping pills, which I later thought was a bad idea. Those pills made me sleep so deeply that I doubt I would wake up for anything, not even if there was a loud alarm. It became truly frightening what happened next. One afternoon I was looking through Instagram, just like I usually did. Then I saw that odd profile again, Mark_Dark45. I clicked on it without really thinking why, and what I saw made me freeze with fear. Every single photo was from around my apartment. Some showed the outside of my building, and others showed places near where I live. But what scared me the most were the pictures of the inside of my bedroom, taken right through my window. In some photos, I could even see myself sleeping. It had to be Mark_Dark45, the mysterious figure I had seen at night. I blocked him right away and told Instagram about his profile. Then I pulled my curtains shut so hard I nearly tore them down. But that wasn't the end. It got even worse. I began getting weird messages from accounts I didn't know. They would say things like, "Hey beautiful," or "miss you." That's when I decided to call the police. The officers listened and said they would look into it. They also told me it might be best to stay somewhere else for a bit. So I went to stay with my parents, leaving my apartment behind. I missed my place a lot. It was perfect for me, but I couldn't be there, not by myself. After a couple of weeks, the police contacted me. They had caught the man. They had somehow traced back the creepy account to him. He was arrested, and the police said it was now safe for me to go back to my apartment. I felt a mix of relief and excitement to return to living on my own. I missed my independence, so I packed up and went back to my apartment. As soon as I opened my door, something felt off. It was just a gut feeling at first, but then, entering my bedroom, I was struck by horror. Someone had written messages all over my walls in black marker. Phrases like, "Hey beautiful," the same things strangers would comment on my posts. Some intruder had broken into my place while I was gone. I had no idea how they got in, whether they picked the lock or somehow climbed through a window. It's been a long time since then, but I still remember every detail. I moved out soon after and haven't had any trouble since. I still share photos online, despite the terror I went through. I guess I can't give it up. I never thought I'd get tricked like this. I always saw myself as smart and careful, but I guess feelings can make you ignore all the warning signs. It all began when I got a message from a pretty girl on Instagram. Her account was set to private, but from the few photos she shared, you could tell she was beautiful and had an attractive smile. I have a good number of followers on Instagram myself, so getting messages from people I don't know isn't strange. I won't go into details about who I am, but let's just say I make music and have many people following me online. We started talking, and I was taken aback by how easygoing and flirty she was. She said nice things about how I look and my sense of humor, and she wanted to know about my hobbies and my music. We chatted for a couple of hours, and then we shared our phone numbers. She sent me some pictures of herself, and I couldn't help but feel thrilled about the idea of meeting her face to face. She mentioned she lived in a tall building in the middle of the city and asked me to come over for a drink. I was hesitant at first, but she kept saying she was someone I could trust, which is something only someone trustworthy would say, right? I knew it might not be the wisest choice, but I said yes because I was too curious. I showered, dressed in my nicest shirt, and took a taxi to her place. Feeling a mix of nerves and excitement, I wondered if she'd be as stunning and charming in person as she was online. Arriving there, I was struck by how modern and fancy the building looked. I rode the elevator up to the 20th floor. As I approached her door, my hands were almost shaking. I knocked, and in no time, the door opened. She was more gorgeous than her photos. She welcomed me with a big hug, and I noticed the scent of her perfume. She led me into her living room, which was set up nicely with candles, wine, and snacks. We sat down, she poured the wine, and we toasted. We shared stories about our lives, what we love doing, and what we dream of. She said she was a model and an influencer. When she mentioned that, I hesitated because her Instagram didn't have many followers. Maybe she was popular on another platform. But I had my doubts. However, I pushed those thoughts away. Later, I needed to use the restroom, so I excused myself and went down the hallway, trying to recall where she said it was. After using the bathroom and washing my hands, I caught my reflection in the mirror. That's when I heard it. There were footsteps in the living room, but they weren't just hers. It sounded like several people. I left the bathroom and headed back. When I reached the living room, I found 4 men standing there, blocking the way out. My date had disappeared. The men were dressed all in black, from their clothes to their gloves and masks. One of them held a gun in his hand. "What is this?" I asked. "Be quiet and follow our orders," one of them replied, with a voice that sounded dark and threatening. They forced me to unlock my phone and open my cryptocurrency wallet. That moment made it clear to me that I had walked into a trap. I realized they chose me because of my online presence. As I mentioned earlier, I'm quite known on social media, and I've talked about different cryptocurrency projects before. They must have figured out that I had valuable assets. I had no option but to obey them. I logged into my account, my hands shaking and my forehead covered in sweat, as I faced the fact that I was about to lose everything. They gave me a digital address and ordered me to send all my cryptocurrency there. I complied, feeling both sick to my stomach and foolish for falling into such a simple trap. The moment the transaction was confirmed, one of them snatched my phone and commanded me to leave. I walked out feeling betrayed and dumb. I was unfamiliar with the area and had no means to call for a taxi, the police, or anyone to help me. All I wished for was to hide away from everything. I can't even bring myself to mention the amount of money I lost that night. It was a significant loss. After walking aimlessly for what felt like forever, I finally managed to stop a police car. I explained what had happened, and the officer drove me to the police station. There, I shared everything I could remember, including the exact location of the condo. Days later, the police informed me that the condo had been rented through Airbnb with a bogus account and a stolen credit card. I couldn't grasp all the details of their scheme, but it seemed elaborate. This ordeal served as a harsh lesson for me. When you're young, it's easy to feel like nothing can touch you, that you're safe from harm. It took an experience as dreadful as this for me to understand that there are individuals out there ready to exploit and harm you without a second thought. I never recovered my funds, and it's hard to admit, but I haven't fully moved past this incident. So now, I am 16. My birthday was just a few days ago, and since then, I've been spending a lot of time playing games on Roblox with my best buddy. We dive into adventures like Murder Mystery 2 and Arsenal. But when I'm on my own, I usually hang out in Adopt Me because I'm all about collecting those cute pets. The thing I'm about to share happened just minutes ago. I was chilling in Adopt Me after my online classes. Mondays are great because we finish early, so it was around 11:52 a.m. and now it's 12:07 p.m. While playing, I noticed a player whose name eerily reminded me of someone I'd rather forget, with some numbers tagged on the end. I brushed it off, thinking, it's a common name, right? But deep down, something felt off. Yet, I shrugged it off again, guessing maybe they wanted to swap pets since I had one that's pretty hard to find. So, I stopped my in-game car, waiting for that trade request, but it never came. Instead, I decided to head over to the campsite because my virtual pet seemed eager to visit. Things were fine until I was on my way back home in the game. That's when the user said, "Hey, my name." At first it didn't hit me. Then it struck me hard. My real name isn't anywhere on my Roblox profile. I only have 3 friends there, and they know me by nicknames related to my writing or the Roblox games we play together. I didn't reply to the message, trying to act like I didn't notice it, even though other players began to question, "Who's my name?" This person wouldn't stop following me, no matter where I went in the game. Eventually, I had no choice but to leave the game. And as if that wasn't creepy enough, they tried to add me as a friend right after. Of course, I didn't accept. I blocked them immediately. But that was just the beginning of a series of unsettling events that have happened since I last shared my story. This tale doesn't end here, but the part that follows is even more twisted. After that weird game incident, things got even more strange. This person, let's call him the Shadow, found out about a guy I've been chatting with, who lives far from where I am, not in California. He somehow told a mutual friend about it, a friend who's also close to me but has been yelled at by the Shadow for simply talking to me. This friend told me everything. How the Shadow couldn't do much because my new chat friend wasn't nearby, and apparently, the Shadow found him intimidating, which is funny because the guy is the kindest person I know. Learning that the Shadow was snooping around my online friends and followers, I took no chances. I blocked anyone who could possibly link him to my accounts, essentially cutting off any path he might use to spy on me. I made sure to update my brother, who's been looking after me, and all my friends who knew about this situation. I even warned the guy I'm talking to, just in case the Shadow tried to mess with his head with lies. Before, the Shadow had tried to convince another friend of mine that we were an item, even going as far as to say we plan to marry and have kids, which is absurd on so many levels, not least because I have no such intentions, especially with him. Thankfully, no one took the Shadow's words seriously, except for his own circle who seemed to live in their own delusion. I once caught them talking about me in such a way that made my skin crawl. I immediately told my friends D and B, who were furious, and made sure the Shadow could never get a word in with me. Even though we've moved on from those classes, D and B still keep an eye out, updating me on any new schemes the Shadow or his friends concoct. I had left out some details in my previous updates, mainly because I didn't have the full picture. But after talking to B, I learned more about a disturbing incident from my freshman year. On Valentine's Day, I found a giant stuffed bear on my seat in math class. Assuming it was misplaced, I mentioned it to the teacher, thinking someone had forgotten it. But his reaction was unexpected. He said, "That wasn't there in my previous class." After finding the giant stuffed bear, my math teacher joked, "Looks like you've got a secret fan." We had a close relationship, almost like father and daughter, and often shared laughs. Curiosity got the better of us, and inside the bear, we found a note. I can still recall every word because it sent shivers down my spine. The note said, "Dear my name, on this day of love, I wanted to give you something special. I admire everything about you. Your smile, your eyes, even your figure. You're flawless. I love you." I spent part of my lunch break with my math teacher, discussing the unsettling note. We decided to dispose of it, and though I kept the bear, I couldn't shake off the eerie feeling. During lunch, I met with my friend, S. She commented on how nice the bear was. I shared the whole story with her, including the creepy note. Then, I decided to give her the bear for several reasons. Firstly, she finds comfort in hugging something during her panic attacks. Secondly, I'm not fond of overly grand gestures. Lastly, I already owned plenty of stuffed animals, gifts from my brother since I was a child. S still has the bear, and it's been a great comfort to her. I don't regret giving it away, especially since it helped her. The revelation that the bear was from my stalker came later. B informed me about my stalker's actions, including his claims about us dating during a phone call. In a class group chat on Instagram, which B and D observed but didn't participate in, my stalker boasted that we were secretly dating and that the bear was from him. He even lied that I was upset over him breaking up with me for giving the bear away. My best friend G and I could only laugh at the absurdity before considering legal action. Unfortunately, we learned that since the stalker hadn't physically approached me since I changed classes, and since the harassment was only online, it wasn't considered severe enough for legal action. I'm sharing my story in detail because I want to emphasize the importance of speaking out. Initially, I kept quiet, thinking it wouldn't escalate. But it did, and it's still getting worse. If you're experiencing anything similar, please tell someone. Silence might seem easier at first, but it only lets the situation grow more dire. When I was 18, everything was new to me. I was young, didn't know much about life, and believed in the good in people. Now, being in my mid-20s, I look back and know I would handle things differently. My first year in college was a big deal. I was thrilled to finally be on my own, away from everything familiar. I was so eager to start this new chapter that I decided to take summer classes. This meant I wouldn't be just another face in the crowd of new students in the fall. I'd know my way around, and importantly, it was a chance to escape my home life sooner. Back then, my thoughts were simple, mostly about boys. High school had been lonely without a boyfriend, and I was convinced college would be where I'd meet the one, just like in the movies. 2 weeks into summer session, I was hanging out with one of my roommates. There were 4 of us in total. We were sharing photos from Instagram, showing off our friends and family. This roommate, let's call her Tracy, showed me a photo of herself with 2 guys. One was her boyfriend, and the other was her boyfriend's best friend, who I'll call Sean. Sean was really good looking, and when I mentioned it, Tracy said he was single and studying at a nearby tech college. A couple of days later, Tracy told me she had mentioned to Sean that I found him attractive. He was interested and wanted to follow me on Instagram so we could chat. I was excited and trusted Tracy, so I agreed. Sean and I messaged for about a week before I felt comfortable enough to give him my phone number. At first, he was very sweet, sending me good morning texts and looking forward to our nightly FaceTime calls. I was thrilled by the attention. Having never been in a relationship, it felt like a dream that someone was so interested in me. But soon, his constant messaging became overwhelming. He would text nonstop and wanted to FaceTime multiple times a day. If I didn't reply quickly, he'd bombard me with questions. Was I okay? Was I talking to other guys? He made it clear he'd be furious if I was. This was the beginning of a nightmare I didn't see coming. But in that moment, fear gave me wings. My heart was racing, and my breath came out in short, sharp gasps. I dared not look back, scared of what I might see. I reached my dorm building, fumbling with my keys in a panic. Finally, I managed to unlock the door and rushed inside, slamming it shut behind me. Leaning against the door, I tried to catch my breath, my whole body shaking. The silence of the night was now a heavy blanket, making every small sound echo in my ears. I didn't sleep much that night, jumping at every little noise. The feeling of being watched hadn't left me. It clung to me like a second skin, making me jittery and paranoid. The next day, I decided to take action. I couldn't live in fear. I reported everything to campus security, giving them all the details about Sean and the events of the past weeks. They took my statement seriously and promised to increase patrols around the dorms, especially at night. They also advised me to always walk with someone at night and to keep my phone handy to call for help if needed. Despite their assurances, the fear didn't go away. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Every unknown number on my phone made my heart skip a beat. It wasn't just the fear of Sean anymore. It was the realization that my sense of safety had been shattered. The world seemed darker, more dangerous. One evening, as I was trying to distract myself with my studies, a knock on my door made me freeze. My first thought was Sean, but then I reminded myself he couldn't possibly know where I was now. I approached the door hesitantly, asking who it was. The answer was a relief, just another student from my class who had come to discuss some notes. Still, the incident left me rattled. It showed me how deep my fear ran, how it had changed me. As days turned into weeks, the tight grip of fear gradually loosened. The increased security presence and the support of my friends helped me regain some sense of normalcy. But the experience had left its mark. I was more cautious, more aware of my surroundings. I had learned the hard way that the world was not always a safe place, and that trust should be given sparingly. The story doesn't end here, but this is where I'll pause. What happened next is a tale for another time, a continuation of a journey from innocence to awareness, from fear to resilience. And as I reflect on those harrowing weeks, I realize that while I had lost a part of myself to fear, I had also gained something: strength, wisdom, and the courage to face the darkness. Running with all my might, I somehow made it back to my dorm building, feeling the chase right behind me. My hands were shaky, but I managed to use my keycard to get inside quickly. I turned around just in time to see a figure, about 10 feet from the door, standing still and staring right at me. Even under the shadow of a hoodie, without seeing a face, a gut feeling told me it was Sean. I didn't stay there frozen for long. I rushed to find the resident advisor, RA, who was on duty that night, tears streaming down my face as I explained the terrifying chase. The RA immediately called the police. I poured out my story to them, every detail, but they were limited in how they could help. Since I hadn't clearly seen the person's face and only suspected it was Sean, they suggested it might have been my fear playing tricks on me in the darkness of the night. Feeling somewhat dismissed and still scared, I called my friend, recounting the night's horror. After that, she never left town when I had late classes, making sure I wasn't alone. This series of events shook me to my core, leading me to rethink my college journey. I decided to leave, feeling that college was no longer the place for me. I moved back home and pursued a different path in cosmetology school, where I found my passion for hairdressing. Since then, I haven't ventured into dating. The shadow of that fear, of a repeat of such a terrifying experience, hangs over me. I've become extremely cautious, guarding my personal information and who I allow close to me. Years have passed, and I've moved states away, yet the fear lingers. I find myself hesitating to go places alone, always looking over my shoulder. Even though I'm far from where the horror unfolded, it feels like it's just around the corner. This fear has woven itself into the fabric of my life, a constant reminder of that night. I've learned to live with it, but it's a lonely kind of vigilance, one that keeps me from fully opening up to new people or experiences. Maybe with time, this fear will fade. But for now, it remains a ghostly presence in my life, a specter of what was and what could have been again. So, some years ago, I had a falling out with one of my friends who liked to mess with people online she didn't like. Knowing this, I took steps to protect all my social media accounts, adding two-step verification that would send codes to my phone if someone tried to log in or change my password. It seemed like a good move, right? I didn't think much about it until a few days ago. I got a text from a number I didn't know, and it called me by my full first name. This freaked me out because my name is spelled in a way that is not common where I'm from. I thought maybe it was just an old friend who changed phones, so I replied with the classic, "Who is this?" I got a strange text back. "Oh my goodness, it's you. Are you 18? I want to send you some money." I thought this was weird, and maybe a scam to hack my Cash App. I asked again, "Who is this?" but didn't get a reply. About 5 minutes later, I got 3 calls and 2 spam voicemails from different numbers. Then, I got a text telling me to pick up the phone and say my name. This was very alarming. I took screenshots and had my boyfriend call the number from his phone, but no one answered. I blocked the number and hoped that was the end of it. About 30 minutes later, I got 5 calls from a new number and an even more frightening text. "I'm a 40-year-old man, and I'm in love with you. I will keep trying to reach you until you respond. I won't stop." I immediately blocked the number and called my parents. Within 2 minutes, he made a new number and texted me again. "Wow, I just want to talk to you for 5 minutes. I'll even pay you, but after that, consider me gone." I blocked him again and told my boss. Then the text stopped. After work, I went to the police station and told them everything. I also bought a baseball bat. I thought it might be a guy I worked with who got fired for bothering people. One of my friends, who was good with tech stuff, changed his phone number and pretended to be me to get more info from the guy. It was a long chat, but basically, the guy wanted to talk to me on the phone while he did something nasty. He called me 26 times and got no answer, so he finally stopped. We thought it was over. The next morning, I got a text from a new number again. This time, he said he was one of my friend's dads. I started to panic. Both my parents and my boyfriend were at work, so my boyfriend sent his mom over to calm me down and stay with me in my apartment. She answered my phone when he called, and all he said in a creepy, raspy voice was, "Please." Then he hung up. I was having a full-blown panic attack. We called the police again, and they sent an officer to update my report. My friend was still texting the guy while the cop was there. When she told him the police were involved, his story changed. He said he didn't know me, didn't live near me, and meant no harm. He claimed he got my number from Facebook and decided to bother me because he was lonely. I might be wrong, but I thought my phone number was set to private. But I had it there for two-step verification. I recently posted something on Facebook Marketplace, so I think that's where he found me. I have since deleted that account and changed my phone number. Nothing else has happened since. I'm posting this as a warning to anyone who uses two-step verification. Please double-check and make sure you have the most private settings for everything. I'm not going to set it up with my new number. I don't want to risk giving it out online again. So, this happened about 4 years ago. I'm 21 now and no longer live in the neighborhood. Yesterday, when I visited my parents, I saw our old neighbor and remembered what happened. Here's some background. I live in a third world country. Our neighborhood is rough for outsiders, but we are friendly with each other. Even people who just got out of jail are usually nice. We have many people with mental problems, and Happy is one of them. My mom and I call him Happy because his name means happy, and we joke, "Oh, Happy? Are you happy?" because he always smiles. That is, unless someone makes him angry, which happens at least 3 times a year. I lived there for 19 years, so I know how he is. Happy lives with his 2 brothers. One sells fruits, and the other is a taxi driver. Happy doesn't work because he is mentally ill. I think he has some kind of schizophrenia, but I'm not sure which one. He just doesn't act right. You can't talk to him about sports or the news or anything. His sentences don't make sense. I should also say that our country doesn't take mental illnesses seriously. We have only 3 psych wards in the whole country. There is no treatment for him, and people just call him crazy. It's really sad. My dad was friends with Happy and his brothers. Not anymore, though. My dad used to give him money so he could buy smokes. He knew the taxi driver brother had to support his 2 kids in another city, and the fruit seller barely made any money. Happy would help carry groceries, and Dad would give him some change. So, since I was a kid, I knew Happy as someone helpful and friendly. I always smiled at him, and he smiled back. But when I turned 15, he changed. He still had the smile on his face, and he stood outside in different shady spots all day smoking. I woke up at 7 a.m. for school and saw him outside, wide awake and smoking. He either didn't sleep or woke up way too early. He also walked long distances. One day, when I was 16, things got really scary. It was a hot day, and I was walking home from school. Happy was standing in his usual spot, smoking. As I walked past him, he suddenly grabbed my arm. His smile was gone, and his eyes looked empty. He said, "You can't leave. You belong to me." I pulled away and ran home as fast as I could. I told my mom what happened, and she called my dad. My dad talked to Happy's brothers, but they just said he was off his meds. They promised to keep an eye on him, but I was still scared. After that, I avoided Happy as much as I could, but he always seemed to be watching me. We would see him in places that took us about half an hour to reach by car, so imagine how long it took him on foot. He seemed restless, but mostly he just stood and smoked. Sometimes he was out early in the morning, and other times very late at night. His behavior became very creepy. He always stared at me with a strange, forced smile. When I passed by him, he followed me with his eyes, sometimes walking backward to keep staring. I glanced back a few times to confirm he did this every time. He would also press his back against walls like he was hiding. His whole behavior changed completely. His anger and fits became more frequent. He would shout nonsense and angrily walk toward his house. Now to what actually happened to me. As I said, he always followed me with his eyes. I was 17 years old, and one day, I happened to be home alone. I didn't go out with my family because I had to study. He probably knew I was alone because whenever my family left, I saw him through the window, standing in his usual spot, staring as they drove off. Lunchtime came, so I went out to buy some stuff to cook. I saw him standing next to his brother who sells fruit at the local market. I went to buy some veggies and meat. The vegetables were close to where Happy was, but the butcher was a minute's walk away. As I paid the butcher and put my purchase into my bag, I looked up and saw Happy staring at me. I didn't think much of it and turned to walk home, but he was right behind me again. I still didn't think much of it, because our houses were right next to each other. I passed his house and waited to hear his footsteps stop, but they didn't. He was still right behind me. I looked back and saw his eyes still on me with that creepy smile. Still, I didn't worry because I thought he was just going to his usual spot to light a cigarette. I never felt in danger in my neighborhood, so I wasn't easily scared, especially by Happy. Even during his rage fits, I didn't think he was dangerous. That's why I didn't notice any red flags. I entered the main door from the street and walked into the wide hall. There was one door where an old woman lived. I passed her door and turned right to climb the stairs to my house on the second floor. I heard someone enter the main door and walk into the hall. Again, I thought it was one of the neighbors from the third floor. The footsteps were quick, so I thought someone was in a hurry. I turned to look at the bottom of the stairs to see who it was and make room for them to pass. To my shock, it was none other than Happy at the bottom of the stairs. I stopped in my tracks and my heart started pounding fast. I said, "Happy, what are you doing here?" He didn't answer. Instead, he started running towards me, taking 2 steps at a time. I tried to climb faster, but he caught my foot, and I slipped. My right arm and knee hurt a lot from the fall. He dragged me to the bottom of the stairs, which hurt my back even more. But with all the adrenaline in my veins, I started kicking to free my ankle from his hands and screamed for him to get off. I also screamed for help, hoping one of the neighbors would hear and come to rescue me. With my free leg, I kicked his arm to make him let go, then kept kicking and shaking the other leg free. Finally, I got free. I turned and started climbing again, afraid he would follow me into the house. I kicked at him, hoping to make him lose balance and fall down the stairs to give me time to get inside. I kicked and screamed, and it felt like forever. But it was probably only 5 seconds. Then I heard the door of the old lady downstairs open. She heard the noise too, so Happy ran away. He passed her house, so she saw him and shouted at him, but he didn't listen. She called my name, asking if I was okay, but I couldn't respond. She popped her head up from the bottom of the stairs, still calling my name, but all I could do was cry and feel the pain. My elbow was bleeding, and she started calling for my mom. I told her nobody was home, so she asked me to come to her house so she could help with my bleeding. I said I would do it myself, but she insisted. Eventually, I ignored her and slowly climbed the stairs to my house. After about an hour, I calmed down a bit and went to the old lady's house. I knocked, and she opened the door. I asked her not to tell my parents, because if my dad knew, he would probably kill Happy. I told her that Happy was just crazy, and my dad shouldn't go to jail for someone who wasn't in their right mind. I convinced her that Happy wasn't thinking straight, and that it wasn't that serious. She promised not to say anything to my family, and that was that. For the next 2 years, Happy changed again. This time, he wouldn't even look me in the eyes. If I was walking and he was coming towards me, he would turn around and walk away. The first few months, I was scared he would be waiting around a corner or something, but he just didn't want to be seen by me. Even after I moved out and only visited sometimes, he still didn't want to be seen by me. To this day, 4 years later, he avoids me. So, Happy, I hope you stay that way and don't hurt any other girls in the neighborhood. But what I really hope for the most is better mental health care in my country. People like Happy need it. Jocelyn Connor was born on March 14, 1990, in Anaheim, California, and grew up near Lake Elsinore. She started modeling for local magazines when she was just 17. She became really famous when she was on the cover of Lowrider magazine. Jocelyn also appeared in a World Star Hip Hop Valentine's Day special video and Gerardo Ortiz's music video for his song Imabesa. She was in many other magazines and music videos too. This fame helped Jocelyn start her own swimwear brand. She used her Instagram, where she had 13 million followers, to sell her products. Her Instagram was what you might expect from an influencer. Lots of pictures of herself in swimsuits and showing her travels around the United States and Latin America. She traveled in a private jet and went to modeling events in New York and Los Angeles. Jocelyn was also famous for her big behind, which got her the nickname the Mexican Kim Kardashian. But she had brains too. Her LinkedIn profile said she studied microbiology at San Diego State University. She was smart and good-looking, and she made a lot of money. People guessed she made over $100,000 from sponsorships and swimwear sales. But for Jocelyn, it wasn't enough. In December 2020, Jocelyn booked an appointment with a plastic surgeon in Colombia for a Brazilian butt lift. During this procedure, fat is taken from different parts of the body and injected into the buttocks to make them look bigger. This surgery has become very popular in the United States. From 2000 to 2015, the number of these surgeries went up a lot, with the total rising from 1,356 to 4,767. But injecting fat into the buttocks can be very dangerous if not done correctly. It can cause fat embolism, where fat gets into the bloodstream and blocks a blood vessel. Jocelyn's surgery was set for early December, but around that time, news of her tragic death started to spread. The cause of Jocelyn's death has not been confirmed by her family, but Instagram influencer Lyra Mercer tweeted on December 7th, "OMG, Jocelyn Cano died in Colombia getting surgery. That's wild." A 3-hour live stream of what is believed to be her funeral was shown on YouTube. Loved ones were seen paying their respects to the young woman, with a large picture of her beside the casket. The funeral was small and intimate because of the pandemic, but watching the live stream, you could see that Jocelyn's family was absolutely devastated by her death. She left behind 2 young children. The estimated death rate for Brazilian butt lifts is 1 in 3,000, according to plasticsurgery.com. It seems likely that Jocelyn's death was due to complications from the surgery, making her one of the unlucky few. Some people wonder why representatives for Jocelyn's brand have not confirmed the news. One follower complained, "Considering the brand is hers, y'all should make a statement. She had over 12 million followers." The lack of confirmation has only fueled rumors that Jocelyn died because of the surgery. Those in charge of her company might think that how she died could hurt her brand. After all, they are profiting from the vanity that comes from the Instagram influencer culture. Last year, an online news site reported a rise in black market butt lifts inspired by Snapchat dysmorphia. This condition makes people feel out of touch with their own bodies because of constant exposure to edited or modified images on social media. It has been widely reported that beauty-based social media is very damaging to female mental health, putting unrealistic expectations on women. But it also affects their physical health, with dangerous surgeries causing the deaths of several young women over the past few years. It is terrifying that such pressures can make women risk their lives to meet a certain beauty standard. Even smart, successful people can be so deeply affected by what they see online that they choose dangerous surgeries. Jocelyn didn't have to die. That much is clear. But the question is, how many more young women will have to lose their lives before we learn to love ourselves as we are, instead of chasing an impossible standard? And how much are we to blame for allowing such a standard to exist in the first place? So, back when all the fighting with ISIS started in Iraq and Syria, a friend told me about an Instagram account run by a group called the Peshmerga. They were Kurdish fighters, different from Arabs but still Muslims. They were being attacked by ISIS, so they were at war with them. The account showed combat videos and pictures of them with captured ISIS weapons, ammo, vehicles, and other stuff. They posted some crazy things, so I followed the account, and their posts showed up on my feed sometimes. One day, I saw a picture of them with a captured ISIS fighter. He was bloody and looked really bad. but the caption was in Kurdish. I used Google Translate to figure out what it said. The translation wasn't perfect, but it helped. Some words were spelled wrong or were slang, so they didn't translate well. But I got the idea. The words that translated were things like vote, mercy, kill, and ours. It was clear they wanted their followers to decide if the prisoner should live or die. Most comments were just, yes, kill, do it, and similar things. Only a few people said not to do it, with reasons like, you'd be no better than them, and we are not barbarians. I was really shocked because they gave only 2 or 3 hours for the decision. The post had been up for half an hour, and there were already hundreds of comments telling them to kill the guy. I shared the post with the friend who showed me the account. We talked for hours about how messed up it was and whether the prisoner deserved to die given what his group was doing. ISIS was taking slaves and bringing back open-air slave markets with crying women and girls, and they were killing hundreds of innocent people in mass executions in the deserts. But in the end, our thoughts didn't matter. While we were talking, my friend sent me a new post with a shocked, appalled emoji. You know those emojis that are yellow but also kind of blue? It was a photo, a picture of the same prisoner whose image was posted just a few hours before. He was lying in the dirt with a blank look on his face, a puddle of blood spreading under him. They did it. They killed him, on the orders of the general Instagram public. It sent a chill through me. Like I said, I have no doubt the guy deserved what he got. But knowing it was done in such a savage way, put to a vote, it was terrifying. Even the so-called good guys could be as bloodthirsty and merciless as the monsters they fought. We can't really judge either. The Kurds were being killed out there. How would you react if your people were being murdered or sold into slavery? You'd want to fight back too, and fiercely. The posts were taken down, and the account was banned not long after, thankfully. Instagram couldn't have something like that on their platform. But as quickly as the admins deleted an account, a new one would pop up and post the same images and votes. It didn't just happen one time. I saw execution votes, like the first one, posted again and again. I don't think I've ever looked at people the same way since. I know that stuff was half a world away, but I think we can all agree that at their core, people are the same everywhere. We can be kind, generous, and compassionate, but we all have it in us to be cold, bloodthirsty, and monstrous too. Eventually, my friends convinced me to make my Instagram profile public. They said it would bring more followers, more likes, and open doors for business deals. I followed their advice and switched my profile to public. However, I didn't see any new followers, so I forgot about it. I thought maybe I wasn't meant to be an Instagram model. This all changed when I went on a beach trip. I decided to take some pictures and ended up taking a few bikini photos. They weren't too revealing, just showing a bit of cleavage. I posted them on Instagram, thinking only my girlfriends would see them. But suddenly, I got a lot of likes and comments from strangers. I forgot my profile was still public. I panicked and tried to delete the post. But then I saw my follower count was going up fast. I realized I could make money from this new popularity. From then on, I posted pictures like crazy, and my profile grew faster every week. It didn't take long before someone sent me a message with a business proposal. It was for a drink advertisement, and after signing an online contract, I was supposed to go to a specific photo shoot location and take pictures with their product. I was excited because I was going to make a good amount of money from this job. I told my parents about it, and they were excited for me too. The photo shoot was in a bigger, more popular city than ours. I told my parents it was in our city so they wouldn't worry. When I arrived at the location, I saw a really handsome guy in a suit. He introduced himself as one of the company's agents and asked if I wanted to grab a drink and talk about the full details of our deal. I was confused at first, but didn't think much of it. I just assumed this was how business was done. Yeah, I agreed to have the drink because nothing tastes better than a free one. But when I had drunk about half the glass, I started feeling really bad. My head was spinning, and I think I passed out because I don't remember anything else. I woke up in what seemed like a dark basement. I couldn't see much, but the first thing I noticed was that I was tied up and gagged. I couldn't scream for help even if I tried. When my eyes got used to the darkness, I saw two other girls tied up in the room with me. Both were unconscious, and one of them looked almost dead because she was so pale. I had never been so scared in my life. My mind finally understood what had happened to me. I was kidnapped and locked in a basement, and I didn't know what to do. The kidnappers took my wallet and phone, and I instantly regretted not telling my parents the real location of my photo shoot. I felt completely hopeless. All I could do was stare at the basement door and wait for someone to come in. I stared for what seemed like hours, but nobody came. Suddenly, I heard police sirens getting closer and closer until they were right outside the house. I couldn't believe my luck. It was the happiest moment of my life. The police entered the house and eventually came down to the basement. They untied all of us, and paramedics took us to the hospital. Thankfully, I was able to recover from this physically and mostly mentally. The pale girl, though, wasn't so lucky and later died. The officers told me they got an anonymous tip from someone who saw a man in a suit putting pills into my drink. I also found out that the man who pretended to be an agent was connected to human trafficking and planned to smuggle us out of the country. This was the most terrifying day of my life, and I have never accepted any business proposal that I had to do in person since then. I am 21 years old. At the time of writing this story, I was 16 years old. I started to really grow on social media as a broadcaster in general. I loved posting other fitness and progress photos as well as my other selfies. I had a very loyal following and a lot of people I didn't really know on social media, but I didn't mind because it was part of my job now. Fast forward 2 years, my current boyfriend and I had just broken up. Well, we're still on pretty good terms. She texts me like she's worried about some guy on Instagram who keeps asking me naked. My heart sank. A random guy I know as one of my regular followers sent my ex a whole gallery of my photos. These are not just a few photos, but hundreds. Photos I deleted years ago, progress photos of workouts I stopped posting a long time ago, and also selfies, videos, weird angles, stories, literally everything. Hundreds of photos of me as a teenager in his camera. I was completely amazed. I had to come to terms with it, and eventually I blocked him, and just tried my best to move on from it. A few days later, I told my followers about my followers. Some of my closest friends and Discord admins have sent me private messages. Apparently someone got into my Discord and posted some dodgy progress photos without any context. It was humbling because, as I said earlier, I had to come to terms with the fact that I really wanted to be more humble and more comfortable with myself, and that was a really hard setback for me. It was really disgusting, but that wasn't even the worst part. A few months later, I decided to Google my username. The same guy posted my images on various sex sites and even 4chan forums, among others. Captions were like, "Hey, young Latina," and so on. I want you all to remember that I was only 15 or 16 years old in these photos. Luckily, I was able to remove them, but it's still scary to think how some people can be so obsessed with you. Please be careful what you post on social media. But what scares me the most is how many of these people are in secret that we don't even know about. It's really scary to think about. Hi, my name is Martin, and I want to share my creepy Instagram horror story. I never thought protecting others could go so wrong. I came very close to death and now see how lucky I was to survive. I hope you read this till the end and be careful next time you use Instagram. This story happened about 4 years ago when I was still in high school. I lived in a small town in Pennsylvania, but many kids came to our school from nearby towns and countryside areas. It was a fun time. I had many friends and went to many great parties. I also had a girlfriend and was pretty happy with my life. But things changed when I met Christopher. Christopher was a tall, well-built guy with a good head of hair, but he wore thick-rimmed glasses. These glasses made him look like a cartoon character. They often fell off his nose, and he would always try to put them back in place. It was funny to me, and sometimes teachers scolded me for laughing at him. Despite laughing at him, we became friends from the start. He had transferred from another school because his father got a new job near our town. On the day he arrived, I was sitting alone at my desk at the back of the classroom. I liked my personal space, so I rarely sat with anyone. When he entered, the teacher assigned him the only available desk, which was next to mine. I greeted him and found him nice from the beginning. We talked a lot and spent our lunch break together. It seemed we had much in common. He showed me his video game collection and told me he loved League of Legends, which I also played a lot back then. After some time, I invited him to my house for a sleepover. The day of the sleepover, we planned to grab some snacks and drinks from the store and watch movies in my room. I had a big TV, so it was the perfect place to talk, watch TV, and play games. And that's what we did. But before we started a movie, we talked a lot about our classmates, and our conversation drifted to the topic of girls. That's when I got really creepy vibes from him. He said something like, "I think all the girls in our class look like sluts. They try so hard to look good with makeup, but without it, they would look like crap." I said, "Well, maybe. I don't know. I like some of them because of their personality. They seem cool." He replied, "Bro, are you blind? They're ugly as shit. I fucking hate those women. At least I'm making money off their stupid, ugly faces." "Wait, what do you mean by that?" I asked, confused. "You gotta check this out," he said, pulling out his phone. "I made an Instagram page where I upload photos of those ugly girls. Guys from our school pay me for each photo. They even suggest which girl should be next. I just need to upload pictures of them in embarrassing or revealing situations. For example, I follow them to the bathroom or hide in the girl's locker room to get a perfect shot without a bra. It's so exciting, and I make so much money from it." My heart started to race, and I felt instantly unsafe when he showed me the page. There were many lewd photos of girls I recognized from our high school. Many pictures were taken from hidden spots, which I knew was illegal. Some photos were taken from above restroom stalls or even under them, showing intimate parts and even things like defecation. I couldn't believe this nice guy I had been friends with for a while turned out to be such a stalker. I never wanted those girls to find out about this page. From what I could see, it was very popular. There were many comments from my Instagram friends at school. Most were dirty comments from some nerdy guys who would never have the guts to approach these women. I was horrified and scared. Christopher had a big smile on his face and showed no remorse. He was only laughing and getting worked up about it. He really hated those girls, and I didn't know why. I immediately wanted him out of my house and thought about reporting it to the principal. But I decided to play along and pretend it was funny because he was much bigger than me, and I didn't know what he would do if I told him what I really thought. My parents were out of town that weekend, so I didn't know where to seek help. The rest of the day we played games and watched movies, but I kept my guard up and felt anxious. The next day, I went to school and told everything to the principal. He called the police right away and thanked me for my report. It was a serious crime, and he said Christopher would be suspended. I didn't see him at school the next day, so I suppose that's what happened. But I noticed some of the girls in my class were absent too. I later learned from a friend that the officers showed the page to some students to confirm the photos were taken without their knowledge or consent. I can only imagine how shocking and embarrassing that was for them. I later found out that some of those students experienced major trauma, staying home from school and crying every day for weeks. The page was blocked by Instagram almost immediately after the police got involved. After further investigation, Christopher was expelled from school. For my own safety, I blocked him on every social media platform and his phone number. I hadn't heard anything from him for at least 3 months. That was until one Friday evening. I was chilling in my room playing League of Legends, when suddenly I heard a loud noise outside my bedroom window. Chills ran down my spine. It sounded like someone stepped on a tree branch and broke it. The first thing that came to my mind was that it was an intruder. I was once again alone at home, so I started to panic. My parents had this big new house, so there was a higher chance it could become a target for thieves. I decided it was better to leave the house to stay safe. I thought to pretend I had to go to the store, so I put on my shoes and baseball hat. As soon as I left the house, I saw a figure in black hiding behind the bushes. I don't know why, but I suddenly froze and couldn't move. I stared at the figure as it slowly stood up. I could finally see who it was. It was Christopher, but I almost didn't recognize him. He had a lot of his hair chopped off and looked like he had cut himself with a knife he was holding. Suddenly, he charged at me with the knife. I thought I was going to die at that moment. I couldn't move and didn't understand what was happening. He knocked me over and stabbed me in the stomach. He was yelling, "You've left me no other choice than to kill you. You've destroyed my life." I had never experienced such pain. My mind finally realized what was happening, and I instinctively threw his body off me and onto the grass. I then stood up and ran toward my neighbor's house. Christopher followed me but couldn't keep up. Thankfully, my neighbor had his front door unlocked. I didn't even bother knocking. I just entered his house, slamming the door shut and locking it behind me. He was sitting in the living room, shocked and confused, especially when he saw blood coming from my stomach. I explained what had happened, and he called 911, asking for the police and an ambulance. I just remember feeling so dizzy. I fainted but woke up several minutes later, surrounded by police and paramedics. Christopher was apprehended and sitting in a police car. Thankfully, I didn't have any life-threatening injuries. I recovered from the stab wounds and was left with a nasty scar on my stomach. I testified against him, and after a few months, I found out he got 6 years for attempted murder. Like many of the girls at my school, I was left with major trauma from Christopher. I still don't understand why he held me responsible for destroying his life when I was only trying to protect the girls from our school. It's a reminder to always be careful and to realize that you never truly know someone, even if you think they are your friend. When I was in the 8th to 10th grade, I was very active on a small building server. The average age was around 15 to 17, and I joined a group of builders and talked with them on Skype every weekend for hours. We all became close friends quickly and trusted each other enough to follow each other on Instagram. I became especially close with one of the builders named Peter. Peter was in the same grade as me, and we ended up texting a lot. I heard some rumors that Peter might have a crush on me, which he denied. I found it funny because it was the internet, so I just brushed it off. Everything was fine for a while until something began to feel really off whenever I talked to him. I started noticing him telling small lies constantly. This bothered me a lot, so I decided it was time to distance myself from him and stop talking to him altogether. A few months later, out of nowhere, Peter sends me a text saying he might be transferring to my high school. He said he was doing this to get in-state tuition for college. Peter's plan was to live alone and support himself while still in high school. My stomach dropped when I read that text, and I felt very uneasy. I tried to stay calm, but also told him that his plan was crazy. I said it was strangely convenient that he chose my random suburb of all places. Peter insisted that his plan would work out and that it was just a coincidence he was going to my high school. I tried to call Peter's bluff, hoping he was just messing with me because I had cut him off. Peter then said he had already bought plane tickets and was coming to stay in my town to visit some high schools in the area. Fear washed over me. I began to realize that Peter had some really weird, unhealthy attachment to me. Peter wasn't bluffing. To my horror, he posted a picture on Snapchat from the airport. Peter asked me to meet him there, but of course I declined. Later, I saw on his Snapchat story that he was actually taking a tour of my high school. He took lots of videos and pictures, probably hoping I would see them. Luckily for me, I was stuck at home with pneumonia. I spent the next few days totally on edge, afraid he would ring my doorbell at any moment. Luckily, he wasn't smart enough to find where I lived, and he flew home without following his plan. The most baffling part? None of my old group from the Minecraft server even thought he was doing anything creepy. I honestly felt like I was going crazy for thinking this was weird. I thought my rejection of his meetup would be the end of it. But about 2 years later, I had just committed to my dream college. I still stupidly followed Peter on social media because I wanted some kind of warning if he was coming to my area again. Once again, he did. I saw him posing right in front of the library at my college with the caption saying, "Transferring here is definitely the move." A few months later, Peter found out that I had a boyfriend. He contacted me directly for the first time in 2 years. He started asking strange questions like, "Is he going to protect you?" I shouldn't have answered, but for some reason I did. I finally blocked him, and out of fear, decided to stop following him on social media. He hasn't tried to contact me since. This happened a few years ago. During my second year of college, I had to switch dorms suddenly because the housing office at my university was terrible to me and a few other student workers. Long story short, I lost my job and had to move within a day. My parents drove 5 states to help me and made a big fuss in the housing office so I could get more time to move. This is important later in the story. I used to go on Instagram Live a lot because I'm a music minor, and practicing in front of an audience helps me improve my piano skills. Instagram had started showing stories and lives on the Explore page, so I got a lot of views and comments from strangers. Most comments were just song requests that I couldn't play because I had a strict practice list from my piano teacher, or heart eye emojis from random people. I enjoyed the lives until I got a comment from a man who knew exactly where my university was. I never wore any school clothes during my lives or shared my location on Instagram, so this made me a little nervous. I stopped doing lives for a while and got busy with regular work, thinking everything was fine. Then, the guy sent me a few messages, asking me out on a date. A quick look at his profile made it clear he was at least 50 years old. He worked as a laborer in the city near my university. He asked me several times a day about my class buildings, if I liked the cafeteria, and other personal questions. I got scared and decided to block him. But before I did, I called him a pervert and a weirdo for being so interested in me when I was much younger, and for trying to find me at school. A few weeks later, after I had forgotten about his messages, I got a new message from him. It said something like, "I waited for you in front of your old dorm for hours, but you never showed. Did you go home for the weekend? You shouldn't be so rude to me next time, or else we won't have fun when we meet face to face." The message scared me more than anything before. One of my close friends had just graduated from the university and started working as a campus police officer. I decided to talk to her about what I could do. Sadly, there wasn't much that could be done, but I definitely pulled back on my social media presence. The guy followed me from 2 more Instagram accounts with different usernames, and I blocked all of them before he could message me. Thankfully, since leaving after that spring semester, I haven't heard from him. I really hope I never hear from that creepy old guy from Instagram again. My name is Lucy. I'm a high school girl who lives with my parents and little sister Mia. Since I was a kid, I have always looked up to Mia. She's always been the prettiest and most friendly girl. No matter what room she walks into, she makes everyone smile. Everyone in our family loves her. When I struggled with math, she got perfect scores on every test. My parents often tell her that she will conquer the world with all her talents. But what always bugged me was how she got a boyfriend before I did. Even when I dated someone and brought him home, he would lose interest in me after meeting Mia. It was like a magic spell. They would start talking to her, and then ask me for her number. I can't explain how hard it was to keep a boyfriend with Mia around. Yes, my own sister was stealing my boyfriends. It wasn't easy. Mia was 2 grades below me, but we went to the same school. I always had to introduce her to my friends, and they would ignore me to talk to her. I've always been in her shadow, whether I liked it or not. But I have to admit, I loved her smile and personality too. In her sophomore year, Mia decided to start an Instagram page. She always wanted to be a model and loved being in the spotlight. She quickly got hundreds of followers within weeks, and then thousands every month. Her success wasn't just followers. She got many offers from companies to promote their beauty products. It all happened so fast. I was amazed by her success and wanted to start my own Instagram page. But my photos weren't as good as hers, and my page never got even 100 followers. Despite my mixed feelings about my sister, I enjoyed gossiping with her about boys. At that time, she was single and not looking for a boyfriend. She wanted to focus on school and her Instagram business. But that changed one day when she told me she got a message from a guy on Instagram. "Hey, Lucy, you won't believe what just happened. This really handsome football player messaged me on Instagram. At first, I thought he would be like all the other guys and send a pic, but I decided to give him a chance anyway. We ended up texting for over 2 hours. He's so sweet, and we have so much in common. It felt like I have known him for years. I really want to meet him. That sounds great, Mia, but you never know with people on the internet. He could be pretending or even be a stalker. Just be careful, okay? Oh, come on, Lucy. You're just being paranoid. I think you've been watching too many scary movies lately. Just please be careful, Mia, I said. Mia spent all her free time texting this new guy. It was like she was becoming addicted to her phone, but she seemed happier than ever. I knew that online relationships could be dangerous because you never really know who's on the other side of the screen. I also knew that my sister would ignore any warning signs because she was so naive and trusting. This back and forth texting went on for about 2 months. She told me they hadn't met in person yet because he wanted to get to know her better first. Mia was fine with this excuse. A few days later, Mia came to me in tears. I had never seen her so upset before. She could hardly speak because she was crying so much. I immediately thought the guy from Instagram was to blame, but I asked her what happened anyway. She said, "It's that guy I told you about. He's actually so evil. Please help me. I don't know what to do. I fell for his trap." "Wait, slow down. What exactly happened?" I asked. "I sent him my nudes. I'm so sorry. I knew I shouldn't have, but he seemed so nice." "Wait, what trap did you fall into?" I asked. "He wants a lot of money. He threatened to post the pictures online if I don't send him what he wants," she said. I advised her to just send him the money and hoped the situation would blow over. She didn't want to tell our parents because she knew she would get in trouble. Mia followed my advice, and for a while, everything was quiet. But the quiet couldn't last forever. The guy messaged Mia again, demanding more money. This time, he said he would demand money every month, or he would post the pictures everywhere. Mia had no choice but to comply because she had become so popular in our city. A scandal like this would ruin her image and her growing career. Thankfully, she had enough money from her business deals to keep this secret. I advised her to do what he wanted and not to tell anyone else besides me, because her secret could spread quickly. Over the next few months, her mental health visibly declined. She was consumed by the stress of the guy posting those pictures. She couldn't sleep and was hardly recognizable anymore. Her once cheerful self turned into a sad, isolated girl. Small cuts appeared on her wrists, which I assumed were from self-harm. It got so bad. Emma had to see a psychiatrist and was given antidepressants. Her grades started to fall, and then her Instagram did too. I heard her crying every night into her pillow. She was losing weight quickly and stopped smiling in her Instagram pictures, which made her followers stop liking them. She finally told our parents about everything behind my back, and that's when everything changed. She told them about the blackmail and showed them the cuts on her wrists. While my mother cried, my father acted fast and drove Emma to the police station to report it. The first thing the police did was track the location of the device that had been messaging Emma all these months. It took a few days, but the police called us back with shocking news. The device that had sent those messages to Emma was from within our own house. The police then asked to speak with my father alone. Later, I found out the officers suggested that Emma was sending those messages to herself, and this behavior was a sign of serious mental illness. My mother tried to talk to Emma about this possibility, but Emma denied everything. One night, I overheard my parents talking about sending Emma to a psychiatric hospital. She was dangerously depressed and had almost stopped going to school. She was so consumed by her stress and anxiety that she couldn't do anything. When I heard my parents talking about this, I snapped. I burst into tears in front of them, and they were confused about why. My mother asked what happened, and I told them everything. I was the one behind it all. That's why the police tracked the device to our house. It was my computer they were picking up. I was just so tired of living in her shadow. It felt like no one cared about me when she was around. Compared to her, I was always the bad apple in the family. Every time I tried to make something of myself, Emma would take the spotlight with her success. I wanted her to feel how I always felt, miserable. Getting the money from Emma was just a bonus. I was the manipulator, and I took advantage of her. It was all easy. I just had to pose as the perfect guy for her to fall in love with. I already knew exactly what she liked and what type of personality she preferred. It worked out perfectly. I just never expected it to go this far. I just wanted her to see that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. My parents couldn't believe what I admitted. They demanded that I leave the house immediately, and after harsh words, refused to speak to me. It took almost a year for my mother to finally contact me and forgive me. My father still says nothing, and I think I deserve it. When my sister found out what happened, she refused to speak with me too, and our relationship has never recovered. Thankfully, my sister was able to mostly recover from it, but she has never fully been the same. I really hope that one day I will regain her trust and that we can be sisters again. This story took place a few years ago. Since so many people are using online dating, I thought I would share this story. One summer when I was in high school, I was swiping through Tinder, looking for someone to hang out with. I matched with a guy who seemed nice and looked really good. Lots of shirtless photos, if you know what I mean. He was a counselor at a local high school in the metro area. We texted for a while, talked on the phone, and then decided to have brunch the next weekend. I met him at the restaurant, and we had brunch with bottomless mimosas. He was nice and funny, and he made me laugh a lot. I think we both got a little tipsy. He said he was going to a barbecue at his friend's house after brunch and asked if I wanted to go with him. He seemed pretty cool to me, and I was having a really good time, so I agreed. I had to walk my dog because I hadn't planned to be out that long, so I told him I would meet him back at the restaurant in about 30 minutes. He said he really wanted to meet my dog and asked if he could come walk the dog with me. I thought about it for a second, but my place was a total mess, so I just told him no. I came back to the restaurant and we grabbed an Uber to his friend's house. There were a bunch of people at the barbecue, drinking and talking, and everyone was really nice. The barbecue was happening out back. We talked to some people, hung out, and drank. He started to get kind of drunk and really handsy, so I told him I wanted a drink and walked into the kitchen to get some space. A couple of minutes later, he came into the kitchen and tried to kiss me. I smiled and shrugged my way out of his grasp, telling him I needed to go to the bathroom. I asked if he would grab me a drink and meet me outside in the backyard. When I left the restroom, I walked straight out the front door, 2 blocks down, and took a right. I grabbed an Uber home immediately. I started getting calls and texts from him, but I blocked him. He also tried to reach out to me on social media, but I blocked him there too. At this point, I pretty much forgot about him. Fast forward about 3 years. I'm sitting on the couch, chilling and reading through the local news on my phone. I scroll down a bit and then see a picture of his face. He had been arrested for attacking women he met on Tinder. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that I definitely dodged a bullet. This started towards the end of my 8th grade year. Basically, my friend had this guy who was following her on Instagram, and he would comment on all her posts, telling her how pretty she was. That wasn't super weird, but we found it kinda creepy because this dude was obviously in his late 50s, and she was only 13. He also started messaging her every day. Not anything overly creepy, just mainly small talk at first. Eventually, he found my page and started commenting on it, but I don't post pictures of myself online much. Most of my posts were just doodles and pictures of my dog. This guy's account also mainly consisted of art, and most of it was actually pretty good, so I didn't mind him commenting on my art at first. Eventually, though, he also started messaging me and trying to talk to me as well. Now, I have pretty bad anxiety, and I hate coming across as mean, so I wouldn't really respond with words unless he asked me a direct question. Mainly what I did was just send a heart or a smiley face. Stupid, I know. This continued for a few weeks, and I learned that this guy could randomly blow up. I learned this because I had responded to a message from him asking my age, and I told him I was 13. Then I put my phone down because I had to do the dishes. When I came back to my phone, I had like 10 messages from him asking why I wasn't responding, and also telling me that he was joking. I was super confused at first about what he could have sent that would make me mad. He had said that both my friend and I looked like we were 18. I found that creepy but didn't want to confront him, so I told him it was fine and that I was just doing my chores. The conversation moved on, and I made an excuse to stop messaging him for the day. One really creepy thing he did was when I posted a picture of my grandma's dog, which is a corgi, with a caption about how much I love that dog. He liked that photo, and then a day or so later, he sent me a picture of a corgi that he drew for me. I thanked him for it, and then he asked for my address so he could send it to me. I absolutely refused, but he kept asking, telling me it was a gift, and that he wanted me to have it. I had to explain that it was a family rule, and that I wasn't allowed to give out my address. After that, he dropped it. Eventually, after a bunch of little creepy things, my friend finally blocked him. He started ranting about it to me, saying she shouldn't be creeped out by him and that he was just trying to be nice. He said that if she had a problem with anything he was saying, she should have just told him. He continued on like that for the next few days. Then, he pointed out that he was following her backup account and was going to start talking to her there. I immediately told my friend about this, and she blocked him on her backup as well. I eventually stopped talking to him, and also blocked him.